The Wall Street bombing of 1920 stands as one of the most devastating and enigmatic acts of domestic terrorism in American history, marking a dark chapter in the nation's struggle with rising political tensions, economic instability, and the fear of radical ideologies. On September 16, 1920, at 12:01 p.m., a horse-drawn wagon filled with 100 pounds of dynamite and 500 pounds of heavy, cast-iron sash weights exploded on Wall Street in the heart of New York City's financial district, just outside the headquarters of the J.P. Morgan and Company Bank. The blast was so powerful that it killed 38 people instantly, maimed more than 300 others, and caused widespread destruction, shattering windows, ripping through buildings, and sending shrapnel flying through the crowded streets. The timing of the explosion was deliberately planned to coincide with the peak of the lunch hour, ensuring maximum casualties among the workers, clerks, and brokers who were then flooding the area. The aftermath of the explosion left a scene of utter chaos, with bodies strewn across the pavement, injured victims crying for help, and blood pooling in the gutters. The iconic red brick facade of the J.P. Morgan building was pocked with shrapnel, a visible scar that remains to this day. The stock exchange, remarkably, reopened within minutes, a symbolic gesture of resilience, but the financial district was left reeling from the attack. The immediate response to the bombing was one of confusion and terror. The New York City police, fire departments, and medical teams rushed to the scene, while the FBI and other federal agencies were swiftly mobilized to investigate what was initially believed to be an attack by anarchists, given the period's political climate. The explosion occurred during a time of significant social and political unrest, known as the Red Scare, which was characterized by widespread fear of communism, anarchism, and other radical ideologies following the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the end of World War I. The U.S. government had been increasingly cracking down on leftist radicals, deporting hundreds in the Palmer raids and arresting others under the Espionage and Sedition Acts. Many suspected that the bombing was a direct response to these repressive actions, and initial investigations focused on anarchist groups, particularly Italian anarchists, who had been linked to previous bombings, including a series of mail bomb attacks in 1919. However, despite the best efforts of the authorities, the investigation into the Wall Street bombing quickly stalled. The lack of concrete evidence, the anonymous nature of the attack, and the chaos of the explosion itself made it nearly impossible to identify the perpetrators. The wagon driver had vanished, and there were no definitive leads pointing to who was responsible for the attack. Some clues, like anarchist leaflets found nearby, suggested a political motive, but no group ever claimed responsibility for the bombing. The anarchists Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti, who were already under scrutiny for other crimes, became prime suspects in the eyes of the public and the press, further inflaming tensions between the government and immigrant communities, particularly those of Italian descent. Despite these suspicions, neither Sacco nor Vanzetti was ever conclusively linked to the bombing, and both were eventually executed for unrelated charges, their trial becoming a symbol of the era's rampant xenophobia and fear of foreign influences. The Wall Street bombing not only intensified the Red Scare but also had a profound impact on the national psyche. Wall Street, the epicenter of American capitalism, was seen as an impregnable fortress of wealth and power, and the attack shattered that illusion, revealing the vulnerability of even the most secure institutions. The bombing also highlighted the deep divisions within American society, as fears of radicalism clashed with the government's aggressive tactics in suppressing dissent. The public's demand for justice remained unfulfilled as the case went cold, with the FBI closing its investigation without any arrests in 1940, 20 years after the bombing. To this day, the Wall Street bombing of 1920 remains an unsolved mystery, with historians and researchers continuing to debate the identities and motives of those responsible. Some theories suggest that it was the work of a lone anarchist, possibly connected to Italian anarchist groups active in New York at the time, while others believe it was a broader conspiracy aimed at undermining American capitalism and destabilizing the economy. The bombing has been interpreted as both an act of political resistance and a precursor to modern terrorism, illustrating the lengths to which individuals or groups would go to challenge the status quo. The attack also serves as a reminder of the fragility of social and economic order, as well as the potential for violence that lurks beneath the surface of political discontent. The Wall Street bombing's legacy is further complicated by the broader context of the 1920s. a decade marked by economic prosperity, cultural upheaval, and significant social change. The bombing occurred during a period of rapid industrialization, urbanization, and immigration, which brought with it new challenges and conflicts. As America grappled with its identity in the post-war world, the bombing underscored the deep-seated anxieties and fears that permeated society, from the threat of foreign ideologies to the volatility of financial markets. The bombing also highlighted the tensions between the federal government and radical political movements, which were often fueled by economic inequality, labor unrest, and opposition to U.S. foreign policy. In the years following the bombing, Wall Street itself became a symbol of both American economic might and the dangers of unchecked capitalism. The attack did little to slow the growth of the financial industry, which continued to expand throughout the 1920s, culminating in the stock market crash of 1929 and the subsequent Great Depression. Yet the bombing remained a dark reminder of the potential consequences of social and economic disparity, as well as the persistent threat of political violence. The Wall Street bombing of 1920, while largely forgotten by the general public today, stands as a significant event in the history of American domestic terrorism. It represents a moment when the fears and tensions of a nation on the brink of change were violently brought to the forefront, leaving a lasting impact on the collective consciousness. The unsolved nature of the crime only adds to its mystique, inviting speculation and intrigue about the forces at play during one of the most tumultuous periods in American history. As scholars and historians continue to explore the complexities of this event, the Wall Street bombing serves as a potent reminder of the unpredictable and often destructive power of radical ideologies when they collide with the structures of authority and capitalism. It is a story of loss, confusion, and the enduring quest for justice in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. A narrative that continues to resonate in a world still grappling with the challenges of extremism and violence in the pursuit of political change.